weight is not the only defining factor in performance. And saying that now sounds like common sense to me. So my name is Max and I've been climbing for nearly 10 years now. I think I first got into climbing when my dad took me to the climbing hangar. 2 years after it opened or so. He used to be the president of a mountaineering society at uni. And I just kind of fell in love with the sport then. I still remember having 5 blisters on each hand and still wanting to keep climbing. And I was doing my own dodgy training at home, you know, the classic sit-ups, press-ups, pull-ups. But I really had no idea what I was doing. I just loved what I was doing and kept trying pretty hard. And then I got scouted by a GB coach and he started training me more regularly. And that ended up kind of snowballing until the point where I was sort of competing nationally. I was training twice a day, 6 times a week during my A-levels. And I kind of had these ongoing finger injuries that were always a limiting factor and caused me a lot of grief. And it got to a point where I decided that I had to stop climbing and take some time out. That's also sort of when some of the behaviours around my eating disorder started to develop. I think without realising it, a lot of the values and beliefs that had become ingrained in me and my identity as an athlete sort of led to certain behaviours around food, which at the time I didn't realise was problematic. I had certain ideas around body image, around weight, around performance that I very strongly valued, and that led to me trying to control those aspects through my diet. And it was probably a year, maybe longer, before I started to realise what I was actually going through. And I sort of gradually came to the realisation that I was struggling with bulimia. You end up developing a very dysfunctional relationship with food, which affected my ability to socialise. It affected my sleeping patterns, and it almost just became a way of life. It became my normal, and it became this kind of back and forth battle. And I kind of began to realise this cycle that I was in. And from there, I started to realise that I couldn't get the better of my eating disorder through willpower alone. And I'd consider myself quite a determined person. But for whatever reason, when it came to this particular struggle, that approach just wasn't working. And that's when I kind of took a more concerted effort to seek help. I started counselling through my university, and then I also started a food diary, and that kind of just helped me understand my own thoughts and emotions that drove my eating. And so I began to have this non-judgmental mindset towards relapses, and I began to become comfortable with kind of what impact it had on me, and acknowledging that I'm not going to be able to recover overnight. And so now I'm a year and 3 months into recovery. I think I'm lucky in the sense that in the climbing hangar, everyone is super sound. You don't get any weight shaming. It's a very overwhelmingly positive culture. Somewhere positive to channel, you know, those kind of difficult thoughts and habits I was having around food. And it was somewhere that I could go and I could still feel good about myself, like I'd accomplished something. When I come climbing now, for me, it's just about having a good time. I definitely do get a significant amount of enjoyment from pushing myself and pushing my grade, but I don't do that all the time. And the priority is definitely just enjoying myself, because at the end of the day, you're going to progress so much more if you come climbing in a climbing gym, outdoors, wherever it may be, and just enjoy it, because you're going to want to come back, you're going to want to put the hours in, rather than focusing on performance and weight. It just leads you down a more difficult path. You know, I think it doesn't really matter what weight you are, you can still push your own boundaries and you can still have fun climbing.